Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. It's Friday evening. Hope you're all doing well. We've got another exciting episode for you here today, the first Friday of the month. It's prime time. Hope everybody's settling in with your dinner and maybe a couple cold ones, or if it's like the next morning or the middle of the night for you, hey, whatever you're doing, thanks for joining us. And as always, we've got here the cornerstones of the show. We got Mr. George Lamie and Eric Porter. And back once again, Mr. Mike Jacobs. What's happening, Mike?
Not much, man. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Good to have you back. So as everybody knows, if you've been watching 4Fusion Friday, which we just celebrated our year anniversary recently, basically we have, it's like a three-pronged attack on this show. We kick it off with new releases that George is going to name off and discuss. Then we go into our 4 picks, and there's a theme for pretty much every episode. George will explain all that. And then after we get done with the 4 picks and we rank those, we've got George's pick, another interesting Fusion release that we have been tasked to listen to and talk about. So with all that being said, I'll turn it over to our master of ceremonies, Mr. Lamie. Take it away, George.
All right, new releases. First one up is Baiju Bot and Red Sun, People of Tomorrow is the name of the album. This dude is an Indian violinist, relocated to Switzerland. Just definitely Oriental flavors here. Some world music influences. You got a couple of nice guest picks as well. Guitarist Wen Lee is on 2 tracks, and bassist Mohini Day is on 1 cut as well. And one of them is the same cut. If someone wants to go check out a song, I would suggest Nataraj. That they're both on that one, and that's one of the hot tracks. It's on Bandcamp, and I believe there is a way to get hard copies, but that may take a little bit of digging. But for me, I'm finding that the songs I like, I really enjoy. They have a certain vibe, but then there are some cuts that I'm a little less interested in, but your mileage may vary on that one. Next up, we got Marie Ginocchio, Wonderland. This is a debut recording from a talented young pianist. Came to our attention by appearing in the comments on one of our shows. And she knew 3 of the 4 albums that were in the square. Now, if you know anything about Fusion, there's 2 things that don't really exist. Female Fusion fans and young Fusion fans. And she is both. She's 19 years old and a talented player. She got us the album early. It actually comes out today, but we've had it for about a week, Eric and I. And for me, she's a really impressive player. When I say someone reminds me of Chick Corea, she reminds me of Chick Corea. At 19, that's pretty scary. I will say I don't connect with solo piano albums like I do band pieces. That's a personal thing with me. If you like solo piano stuff, I would say you have to dig into this. Would you end up thinking of it, Eric?
Yeah, I think she's great. Like you said, how we came in touch with her. She is out on Facebook, so go out on Facebook if you're on that platform. And she's got a bunch of videos out there. I'm assuming they're on YouTube as well, but fantastic. And I know she also mentioned she's gotten a lot of encouragement from Frank Gambale as well, I think, George, right? That he's kind of been encouraging her, and I think he might have been one of the people that was pushing, like, do your own thing here, get some music out. So pretty exciting for her. Like you said, I know it comes out today, and I hope she does great with it.
Yeah, the whole album is on YouTube for people that want to hear some of the songs. I know she has an eye towards writing for the band format later on down the line, but she just doesn't have any experience with it right now. And she's young, and I'm sure it'll all come along, but everybody should go check it out, definitely.
And we'd love to have her on the show.
Yeah, at some point when she's feeling a little more comfortable with everything, we'll probably get her on. The last one is Lee Gretton, All the Things. This is a 3-song EP from a UK-based multi-instrumentalist. Cool material. I like to see a little more song development. We got 3 songs here, and it's only just short of 9 minutes.
Yeah, they're pretty short.
This is another guy. He came to Eric's attention, so I'll let Eric say something a little bit about this.
Same thing. I caught his stuff on YouTube. He was putting out videos. fairly clever because, like George said, multi-instrumentalist. I think he plays everything you're hearing. You know, he's got these videos where he cuts to him on the drums, he cuts to him on the guitar. And like George said, the only thing it kind of leaves you wanting more. I mean, great player. The stuff he's doing sounds very cool. And hopefully at some point, I know he does other work. I have had a couple conversations with him. I think he produces, he might have his own studio from what I was understanding. So he's working with some other artists, but you know, I'm sure he's going to have some stuff coming down the road. He's another one we'll keep in touch with and keep everyone posted on. But check him out. I think Bandcamp, you can get the EP, but it's all over Facebook too. So check out his clips there.
It looks like he writes for video games, and a lot of that may play into why he doesn't have the song development, because it's not really that format for that, you know. So maybe later. But
probably no doubt make twice as much money writing music for video games than he will for public consumption to people like us, right?
Right.
Absolutely. But clever guy, check him out. Very clever.
Yeah, and he is, I'm loath to say it when we got these multi-instrumentalists, but he's a legit drummer. I mean, I was watching him play in these videos. He's the real deal on the drums, so that's always good. All right, so the square this month, we've been talking about doing some regional themes. So I'm not sure how we decided to start with Germany, but hey, region 1 is going to be German fusion. So the 4 albums in question are Karaba, All Highways, Panzerballet, Stark Stück, 7 for 4, Diffusion, and Passport, Cross Collateral. So I know I'm expecting variants this month because these albums all have, I think, upsides and downsides that kind of stick out here. But we'll see what you think, Eric. Let's start with your number 4.
Gave us 4 pretty different bands, George. Stylistically, I get Karaba, kind of gives me that prog vibe. There's a lot of metal influence in the 7 for 4 and Panzerballet. And I think Passport might kind of run that, maybe the closest to what people might think fusion or traditional fusion. But at the same time, Passport can kind of get spacey and say it every month. This was a tough one. But I was messaging George saying, I think this afternoon I was getting my final listens in. Like, I'm just coming to where I'm going to make my decisions. But I think with this one, it's kind of, for me, it's the mood you're in. They're so different. And the only reason I'm picking this one at number 4, I think it's because actually it's probably the one that I was going to least when I was like, oh, I'm going to play this one again, or I'm going to play this one. So I'm going with Panzerballet actually at number 4. Love the guitar player, but these guys are very frenetic, very intense. You kind of have to be in that mood to listen to this for me. I thought it was very clever. And George, I don't know, you could probably explain better than I can. I don't know if all these songs are covers, but they're taking, Smoke on the Water, Paranoid, and obviously putting their own twist on it. So they give you a little taste of those songs, but then kind of go off and do their own thing. I think they describe themselves as jazz metal, which to me, that kind of fits the bill pretty well. So it's not covers in the traditional sense. You kind of get a taste. I love Pink Panther, the one that they open with. Guitar player. Again, this band is really good, very intense, crazy arrangements, horns here and there. The only issue I have with this is, again, I think for me, I got to be in the mood for this because it is so intense, some of the stuff. There's a few vocals where they do the screaming or the growling or whatever. And I can't pronounce any of these titles. Zick and Terror, I think, is one of them, and Freed, and it's I don't even know that one, but you'll know if you listen to it. But great band. I mean, the players are amazing. I love Dreamology. I think that's great. The horns and the bass in that are fantastic. And I really like the way they do Paranoid. It's pretty much a solo guitar piece, where he does play some lead over the top, but really interesting take on Paranoid in the jazzy sense. But there's nothing bad you can say about this, but for me, this is definitely one that I got to be in the mood to hear this, because it is pretty intense stuff when they get heavy. So, but that's my number 4 is Panzerballet.
Mike, where are you going?
Well, first of all, it's really interesting when you have a genre like jazz rock fusion, all the different permutations you can come up with, and they sound nothing alike, it's pretty jarring sometimes, especially with a band like Panzerballet or you go back to older stuff like Mahavishnu, and what started out as the iconic bands that define the genre. You have all kinds of stuff now that's nothing like it, but it still fits,
Yeah.
So, and believe me, I know, because I'm running that jazz rock fusion group. I mean, you get a lot of stuff that fits the definition, but it's up in the air whether it actually is jazz rock fusion or not, like Steely Dan, okay.
I was going to say stuff that doesn't fit there.
Yeah, a lot, yes. But okay, so that said, I'll go to my number 4, which is Karaba, All Highways. And this was good. I mean, these were all good. Some of them were better than others for me. The Karaba, well, first of all, let me say the 4 square seemed to pair off with two bands each that kind of like went together, and then one pushed themselves up and pushed the other down. Okay. So this one got pushed down by another one, which I'll hit later. But the Karaba, it's good. It's super retro sounding, which is fine. But the problem I had with it was I thought it was like a 1975 album. It's 2022. And that's fine. But first of all, the music is good. Tight. It's probably tighter than something that came out in 1975. But there's nothing here that suggests that they've built on anything musically since 1975. Really. I mean, and I got no problem with groups using vintage keyboards, vintage synth sounds, but when you go to vintage production, it's kind of weirded me out a little bit. It kind of soured the milk, because it's like, okay, everybody's got, you see those photographs where you get on the boardwalk where their sepia tone look like they got taken in the 1800s. Yeah, it's nice to have one of those, but to have a whole album full of them, it's kind of strange. So that's how I kind of felt about this album. It was good, but it didn't really, it seemed a little disingenuous, because of the retro thing. Now, if it was a soundtrack, I would have been fine with it. If it was done for a movie, I get it. But to be done in 2022 and sound so 1975 is like, it was a little off-putting for me. Other than that, it was good, but that's the reason it's down at the bottom. And there's another reason in addition that you'll hear later on, but that's how I felt. And, like I said, the music was good. A little tighter than 1975, but then again, I think if this was a real 1975 album, it would have been more exploratory sounding. This sounded a little too finessed and retro at the same time. So that's my personal opinion, but that's what you're looking for, right?
All right. You got 4, Pete.
I got Stark Stuck by Panzerballet, number 4. This is a really fun album. These guys, if you're familiar with Panzerballet, they've got Chops of Doom. Their whole take on jazz metal, I think, is really cool. The guitar player is amazing. A lot of covers on here. In fact, I'm pretty sure almost everything is a cover on here. They do Birdland on here. Zawinul's great track. They do AC/DC's Thunderstruck, which is really quirky and just weird. Like Eric said, Paranoid, I think, is terrific, because me personally, Sabbath is like my all-time favorite band, but I never need to hear their version of Paranoid ever again. But this is cool because it's almost unrecognizable. Like all of a sudden you hear something like, wait a second, I know that song. Same thing with Smoke on the Water. Totally different take on that. The Pink Panther theme is loads of fun. I mean, the metallic, crunchy guitars and the shredding and the sax all over the place. It's really impressive. But when you've got 4 really good albums to work with, and this is basically all covers, to me, it made number 4 by default. So it might be the most fun album out of all of these, but because it's mostly covers, I'm going to put it at number 4. I do really like it. I do think it's a lot of fun. So I think it was a good choice, and it kind of mixed things up here, because like Eric mentioned, all 4 of these albums are really different. I think there's some similarities in a couple of them, but for the most part, they're all really different. It made this very difficult. So yeah, Panzerballet, Stark, Stuck, my number 4.
The ratio is 6 of the 10 are covers, 4 originals. My number 4 is Passport, Cross Collateral, 5th album, 1975. I like the opener, Homunculus, nice road solo from Christian Schultz. The 13-minute title track kicks off, some blazing work from Doldinger in particular. Nice drum solo from Kirk Kress. That whole thing kind of plays out like a prog song, like a suite. It's broken up into like 3 or 4 distinct sections. And then the old vinyl second side opener, Jadoo, I really like that tune. That's ironically a song that Panzerballet would come to cover later. But after that, it kind of whimpers out a little bit. The next 2 songs are kind of like underdeveloped, and then it closes out with a kind of a tune that's kind of on the boring side, Demal's. It's kind of like a half and half album for me. Strong start, it makes you feel like this is going to be a really good record, but then the last 3, it's just kind of tails for me. So that was enough for me to put it at number 4. Eric?
Well, if we were voting for album covers, this would be number 1. I love your album covers. I'm going with Passport at number 3. I had looking through years ago. I bought that, I think, in the early 90s. But again, my guitar bias kind of listened to it, liked it, put it to the side. When I listened to this in comparison to the 4 we got, great compositions. I mean, I love the way these are pieced together. Like you said, the opener, again, I'm not going to say the names because I'll mess them up, but I really like the way that sax has this spacey, airy feel to it. Love the electric piano. I mean, we talk about that all the time, but just a great sound there. It gives them kind of that, it's fusiony, but it's got a little space vibe to it. Jadoo, like you had said, I love that one. Great melody, sax and keys on that. And Cross Collateral, the same thing, the title track, George, I was getting that same thing. It's almost like the 3 big sections don't always fit together. Like the transitions are a little odd into them, but each section, I love the section. There's some great, I think it's the 3rd part. I love the Rhodes, or, Fender Rhodes electric piano part in that. And I'll agree with you. I think Demal's kind of ends the album a little kind of on a down note, but I did like that Will o' the Wisp. I think that's one that has clavinet. And Wolfgang Schmidt does some great bass work in that. Yeah. Really like that. But I thought compositionally, this was terrific. And I ended up buying the 5 for 1. So I bought Looking Through again, getting that. But I'm like, I really like this. I got to get, at least those first 4 or 5 records. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from them.
And those are their strongest albums, Eric. The most of the 70s albums are well worth having.
Cool.
Mike, where are you at for 3?
Yeah, I'm going to be different from everybody else. I can see it right now. So I have 7 for 4 Diffusion as my number 3. And these are really hard choices. I mean, the Karaba for me was pretty easy to put it at the bottom for the reasons I told you. There are other 3, it got a little fuzzy, and like this is one I can't even. It's hard to even explain why it's not higher on the list, but it's not, because it's very well done. It's solid, well produced, lots of great playing, but none until I got to the last three songs, which were Spiral Dance, Hidden Depths, and Mystic Mouse, I was like, okay, everything kind of sounds like it's nothing's, I'm not taking anything away. Like it sounds like those epics that Steve Vai has on a couple of his albums, like Taurus Bulba and even Lucky Charms. They're kind of metally, but they're kind of sweet things, and really involved. It's good, but it's like we got boom, boom, boom. It all kind of hit me the same way for the first part of the record. And by that time, I was ready to write it off. But then we got to the last three, and I really enjoyed those. But it pushed it down the list, especially in comparison to its counterpart, which I'll say later. So yeah, I mean, I hear like a couple influences there. I hear, obviously the Vi, some Dixie Dregs on the opening track. Reminds me of was that that's a Steve Morse Band song. Oh man, I can't remember the name right now. But anyway, it's good, but like I said, it just didn't. And the production was good, but it's almost like that wall of sound thing. Like, I like dynamics, and I like albums in general that have a lot of variance, like have one song here, one song there, one song there, And this was kind of like straight down all the way until we got to the end, which I'll give you that. But that's why it's number 3 for me, and it's good. It's good, but man, if the last 3 tracks could have been the model for the rest of the album, it might be number 1 for me. But I did enjoy it. It's just I enjoyed the last 3 better than the rest. So,
All right, Pete, where are you at with 3?
I'm going to go with 7 for 4. I had a really hard time between my number 2 and 3. They kept flip-flopping. I actually just changed it just now as I'm sitting here thinking about it. I like this album. This was new to me. I'd never heard this album before. And to me, I got lots of bits of like Morgul Bull and, like Mike mentioned, Steve Morse Band, the Dixie Dregs, kind of on steroids. There's some shredding guitars on here. It's actually pretty metallic throughout the whole thing. I love Wolfgang Zenk. I think that's a terrific song. The title track, that's the one that really reminds me of the Dregs or the Steve Morse Band quite a bit. I like Indigo Dunes. Nice use of melody on there. It's still some shreddy stuff on there. Emoctify is a complete face melter. I think the guitar solos throughout are really, really strong. And there are some tasty kind of almost prog type things here, especially like on Silent Flow. Cyclotron is another great one. I really like this album. I think I ultimately went with the one that I switched it out for because I have a little more history with that one. And but this is really good. Could argue a bit, it's kind of a little samey through and through, but the performances are so amazing that it's hard to even consider that it's somewhat samey. I think it's really, really interesting. If folks like really guitar-oriented fusion with a little metal edge to it, I think this one is a no-brainer to check out. So I'm glad you picked this one because it's a nice introduction. So yeah, that's my number 3.
My number 3 is Karaba. I think a lot of people, this came out last year, but it's, as the people have said, it sounds straight out of the 70s. I think a lot of people will give it points for that, but I'm more of Mike's mindset that I'm going to ding it for that because it's just, it feels contrived. Like, why are you trying to sound so much like the 70s? It's not just the instrumentation, the actual production is kind of like a little lo-fi-ish. The less we say about the packaging, the better. I mean, he talked about it when he did his review. I mean, this is not ideal. The strength of this though, these guys are riff writers. I mean, I think before the albums before these are more rockish, space rock, krautrock, whatever you want to say, and it kind of shows. They concentrate more on the riffs. As I sit here right now, I can't even tell you about any soloing on here. There's either none or it doesn't make a mark. And this is fusion. I mean, I'm looking for guys that touch me in that way, and these guys are not the guys to do it. Let's see if any notes here. My favorite tunes are like partway through the album. You got Zen Sieben. That one opens with this wicked 30-second notes drum fill. And then another one is Knack Punked. And that's a really good tune too. Actually, they're all good except for the closer. The closer is this 10-minute, I don't know what you'd call it. It's kind of a freak out or something. I don't doesn't hang together at all. It's 10 minutes that should be left off. But for me, that definitely makes it where it's not going to approach the top two here. So number 3 is Karaba. Eric?
That's my number 2. I'll agree with you completely on the packaging, you and Pete with that one. And I think with these guys, I bought 2 of them when Ken got these in. And like you said, it really scratched a prog itch for me, I thought, in that instrumental vein. It's almost jammy in a way, I guess. I think what you were saying, George, there's not necessarily anything that stands out solo-wise. There is a lot of keyboard and guitar stuff going on, but it almost like a jam band thing to me in a way, if that makes sense. I mean, the songs that grabbed me were Apostle, Castro Space Castle. I thought right out of the gate, they were catchy. A lot of guitar keyboard work was up front. I agree with you on that closer. It takes this from an hour down, and this goes with Pete and Martin's show. It cuts about 11 minutes off of this, and I would never probably listen to that track again. I didn't know. To me, it was just noise. And I think maybe another issue, as much as I like this, the retro didn't bother me. I didn't even think about the production, I guess, while I was listening to it. And when you guys mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, it does have a real lo-fi production, but that didn't bother me, I guess. I didn't really catch my ear. The only thing I would say about this, and maybe it is due to the length, and then when you get to the closing track, you're like, ugh, what am I listening to here? It's keyboard noises and everything else. I think there are times where what surprised me when I looked at it was the song lengths, I think, fall into mostly maybe 3-4 minutes to 7 minutes. I'm going, God, some of these felt longer. And I think maybe they're a little repetitive at times. And maybe that's where that jam band thing comes to me. But I enjoyed this. I enjoyed both of the ones I got. I like the vibe of it. I love that 70s vibe and sound. So it worked for me, I guess, in that sense. And they are good musicians, but I think, like you said, maybe there's nothing standout about them, but I think they mesh well together. And everyone gets kind of a chance to play. So that's my number 2, Karaba.
Mike?
Okay, well, my number 2 is Passport Collateral. I don't have any props today except for the other one, but here's why. This one paired off with Karaba for me for the obvious sonic reasons. This one's actually from 1975, and Karaba just sounded like it was from 1975. And I actually thought, before I looked it up, I thought Karaba was like from that era. So I was listening to both of these back to, together, and the Passport just jumped out at me in comparison by having all the more authenticity, all the more, it sounded more exploratory, it sounded more authentic, even before I knew the other one was from 2022. It's so, and beyond that, I really like this album. I wanted to put this as my number 1. And that's really weird because usually, unless I didn't know any of these albums beforehand. So it's sometimes when you backtrack, it's like, yeah, I get it, but you had to be there. This was really good, man. I really enjoyed it. The drumming was great. And it was a big surprise to me because the first time I heard Passport, it was my brother had an album from the 80s called Blue Tattoo, and it struck me as lightweight, and I never went back and checked them out again. But I didn't realize they had all this material. I knew they had a couple heavy duty players come through the band, like Wolfgang Schmidt and Wolfgang Hafner, who was in Metro. But Yeah, man, I was really surprised, and I really like this album. I even and like me, I know some of you guys like think there's some weak songs. I like the variants. I like, and even the simpler tunes like the ones uh Albatross and Demals. I mean, I think they have a presence that's lacking in a lot of the more high energy stuff on maybe 7 for 4, because there was nothing standing out for me. I mean, like I said, the 7 for 4 was great, but it was just like nothing's poking its head above the surface for me until I got to the end of the album. This one, I enjoyed all the way through, and I went back and listened to it for fun. So I really had a hard time not putting this at my number one, but it's going to be a reason you'll find out later. So yeah, Passport Cross Collateral. I really enjoyed the album. That's my number two.
Cool. Pete?
Well, going in, I fully expected this to be my number one, and surprisingly, it wasn't. But I do really enjoy it quite a bit. And I have the longest history with this album. I've had this for 25 years or so. Cross Collateral by Passport. To me, they've always been kind of like the German Weather Report in a lot of ways. Again, no guitar, prominent either keyboards or sax, right? That sort of thing. Klaus Doldinger is a great player. I really like his compositional sense. You think he's a really good songwriter. He's a really good sax player. Some really nice, tuneful songs on here. And you guys mentioned some of the really good ones. Homunculus is terrific. The title track is epic. Jadoo is great. There's some nice funky roads. I'm trying to remember what song it was. I think might be in Jadoo or Will o' the Wisp. There's like this wah-wah on the roads, which I think is really nicely done. You got the sax kind of soaring over the top. The bass playing is tremendous. Honestly, if it wasn't for Albatross Song and Demals, I don't dislike either one of them, but they're kind of soft. To me, it kind of brings down the album just a little bit because the first 4 tracks are fairly high energy. This would have been my easy number one, but because there were 2 songs on here that I don't dig all that much, I don't hate them. This made it to number 2, but love the album cover, like the production. Like I said, they have a lot of really good albums from the 70s and really worthwhile checking out if you haven't heard them before. And as Mr. Goldman would say, there's some Mellotron on here, so go check it out. So that's my number 2.
My number 2 is 7 for 4. This third of their 4th albums, their 4 albums. Kind of a hybrid, fusion, prog, a little shred, like people have said. Band leader Wolfgang Zenk was a guitar player for a metal band called Siege is Even. So there's a little bit of a metal feel on some of the cuts. The title track opener is great. It kind of encompasses everything that they do, really. All the facets of their personality. Silent Flow is the ballad. It's kind of a decent ballad, although it really doesn't need to be 8 minutes long. I like this closing tracks, like Mike said, the ones post ballads in the middle. Cyclotron, Spiral Dance, those 2 really cook. Spiral Dance kind of a little bit of a Latin feel. Other than the guitar player, I would say the next best player is probably the keyboard player. The rhythm section came from the rock side, and it maybe shows a little bit. I would like to hear more guys genuine to the genre, but I had listened to this a while, and I found myself liking it more than I remembered, actually, which that generally doesn't happen, but I was enjoying it when I was listening to it for this exercise. Challenged for number 1, but like Mike said, it doesn't have traits that, it's a little amalgamous. It doesn't have traits that would make it stand out, so that's why it's at number 2.
Siege is Even, boy. That's a band I haven't listened to in a long time.
No, it was always a tough slog with the vocals.
Yeah, the vocals were never very good. And then they put out that like kind of reunion album. God, what was that, about 15 years ago? It was okay, but
I will say he's on the 2 Sieges Even albums he's on are the 2 best to me.
Yeah, the early ones, right? I mean, that's or
he's on the like 3 and 4.
What's the one with the blue album cover? To me, musically, that's kind of the best one.
Yeah, I can't remember now.
I forget the name of those, but yeah. But I remember the vocals were never really any good. But you listen to them for the music, right? Yeah.
That's the other thing about the 7 for 4. The first 2 albums have a vocal tune. One really bad, one actually not too bad. This is the first one where they said, you know what, let's stop with this vocal thing.
Good choice.
Yeah, we like that around here.
Yep.
Eric?
I'm going with 7 for 4 as my number one. Wolfgang Zank blew me away. And I'm not the biggest metal guy, but I thought he was fantastic. I agree with you guys that the title track, Monster, and I think the bass and drums really, the closing of that just got hot with bass and drums. I was really digging that. Cyclotron, I think that was one where it just kind of had this face melting section, and then all of a sudden it gets into this really jazzy keyboard. I love that transition. And I think maybe a little double bass going on in that one too. That was just killer.
That reminded me of Morgable because they did all those quick little changes there, and it's had this like kind of like humorous take.
Yeah.
It's very like lighthearted and whimsical, and I kind of really dug that. Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with you guys. I think of the 3 closers, I really liked Hidden Depths. It almost kind of makes you wait. I mean, that's probably my favorite solo he does on the album, but it's like, I don't know, it kind of builds towards it. They're maybe holding back a little bit, but it was definitely worth the wait to get to the end on that. The only issue I really had with this one is some of the keyboard sounds. I don't know if it's digital piano in spots or whatever, but some of the keyboard sounds were a little bit off for me personally, but it didn't take anything. I got into this. I ended up picking up this one as well, George. I don't even remember if that was, I don't know if this is one of the ones with the vocals on it or not. I hope not.
Yeah, one tune.
But and I think, like you said, the silent flow and the winding path, maybe separate those. Don't have them one after the other.
Yeah.
Just, more of the sequencing than the songs themselves. But that guitar player, and I might be wrong again, like I said, I'm not a metal guy, but almost like a neoclassical feel to his playing over the top of this stuff. But then, they go into the jazzy stuff, so he can cover that just as well as he does the metal stuff. But I was really impressed with his playing. But that's my number one, is the 7 for 4.
He reminds me of that Petrucci Morse kind of school with the picking, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Mike, what's number one?
Just say about the 7 for 4. The thing about that guitar player, he had like great technique. It was too great, like almost for me. Like, I want to hear like flaws that make you sound like you, and he was just so flawless, and like he had that patented shredder tone, and it's just like perfect. And that was part of the problem with me. Like it wasn't, there were no, high points, low points to really grab onto for me. So he's a great player, but the tone is like kind of like classic, a little too classic. And that was part of the problem for me. So, but it's like, it's a fantastic player. And then he plays like a straight, clean jazz thing. Like, okay, great, man. Well, so I all these bands, like, I'd love to see them do more, but that's, you got to judge the album you're given. So
he doesn't, there's no rough edges on this. It's all very polished.
And that's why, like, when you got to the end of the album, that's why they started to throw in, like, those last 3 songs had they were off the formula, they had different changes in them, and they were doing stuff, and that's when it really hit me, so anyway. So my number one is Panzerballet, and I did not expect this at all, because I'll tell you, the first time I heard this band was off of George's recommendation a long time ago. I got this one here, Hartgenussen, and this has like Simpsons covers, and all kinds of, they do a lot of covers, and it's the same deal with this thing. And when I first listened to it, I really wanted to give these guys a shot again, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of weird and disjointed. And then what happens when you listen to a band and you feel like tepid about it, and then all of a sudden it goes, like, what is that? But that's what happened. And it kind of pissed me off because I was ready to put Passport at number one. And I'm like, man, you know, but I'll say this. One of the reasons that I like that I'm putting this at number one, it's almost not because I like it the best. It's because I see the most potential in the band. I'm excited by what I hear. Like I want to go back to this and listen to it some more because, you know, like, I don't know about you guys, but when I hear something that sounds like Candy right away, that's great, but it goes on the shelf a lot quicker than something that goes, what was that? You know, like something that it's like, I don't quite get this. I got to listen to it again. And then I got to listen to it again. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's opened me up to a different, you know, dynamic than I wanted, that I thought I wanted. So that's what it is with these guys. First of all, this is the best produced album of the bunch, as far as I'm concerned. It sounds tremendous. It is a little quirky, and you know, the covers are kind of cerebral. You know, like they're taking songs, you know, and you got to go, wait a minute, do I know this song? It sounds familiar. Yeah, and then I go, oh yeah, the Pink Panther. Yeah, that's right. All right. So, but when I really isolated their original songs, it's like, wow, this is where these guys can, this is who they are, and this is where they can go. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear their original compositions more than I want to. I mean, you know, look, the covers are cool. It's kind of like a neat exercise. And, you know, like Paranoid was cool. I thought that was a great idea to do a mellow thing, a cover of Paranoid. But, and like, I didn't expect to like a cover of Smoke on the Water or whatever it was, but that was pretty cool. But their original tunes, really, like Dreamology, Winds of Change, awesome. And the one that's all initials, I really enjoyed those, especially on the second and third listens. So because it has that, it's got me hooked. I mean, it's not like Eric says, you know, it's not something I'm going to listen to every day, but I'm going to come back. You know, it's not going to sit on the shelf again. You know what I mean? So that's why it's my number one, and gladly.
To touch on Mike's points about the covers, I would rather listen to these type of cover songs, like from an instrumental perspective, than to go, no disrespect to him because I love him, but you know, Paul Gilbert doing a whole covers album of Dio classics that basically don't do anything different except the fact that he's playing, you know, lead melody lines in place of the vocals. To me, that's kind of boring.
Right.
To hear, you know, Paranoid and Birdland and Thunderstruck and Smoke on the Water done in these weird ways where you kind of do a double take. It's like, wait a second, is that song, right? But you're like, but it sounds so different. That's what I want to hear, because that kind of made this a lot of fun. I would rather hear a covers album done this way than all the other ones that we normally hear that we listen to once and like, okay, next, you know.
Yeah, it's clever. I mean, it kind of is original. Yeah, because you got snips of those songs, but then they're going off in another direction too. So.
If you're going to do a cover songs that are exactly like the original, why wouldn't I just want to go listen to the original, right? You got to make me want to listen to these again, right?
But like what you say, Pete, you know, the first run through with this album, I heard the covers as clever. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all I heard. And then later they really grew on me. Like my first thought was, not everybody can be Zappa, you know, especially with the vocal stuff that they have on here. It's like, you know, but then I started listening more, and their original stuff connected with me. And then I started to hear like more of them, who they were in the covers as well. And although I'd like to hear a whole album of original material, the covers are fun, but they should do, like, if they're going to do that, do a covers album, and then let's have some original albums, you know what I mean? But yeah. Anyway.
All right, your number one, Pete?
Surprise, surprise, Karaba, All Highways. Horrible packaging notwithstanding. I mean, I guarantee you, I bet you $20 that over the next 6 months, this is going to get lost somewhere on one of my shelves, and I'm going to have no idea where it is for years. I mean, it's just, this is ridiculous.
The Skinny Spine.
No, yeah, no spine.
Yeah, no spine.
No spine. No, this is like, this is as flimsy and ridiculous as it gets. I mean, I guess we should be happy for a physical copy, but it's like, come on already. Yeah, I mean, I did not expect this to come in at number one. And I listened to this quite a bit when it first came out. So, geez, not like, when did we get this, in the fall, something like that? But I hadn't heard it in a couple months, so I've been playing it like over the last like week or two. And you know what? I really like this album, and I don't mind the retroness of it. I listen to a ton of retro stuff. Doesn't bother me in the least bit. Quite frankly, I'd rather some bands go out and do music in the style of the 70s, because most of those 70s bands aren't around doing it anymore. So that doesn't bother me at all. I like the compositions. I agree with what George said. I think there's not a plethora of soloing on here, but I don't really miss it because I like the arrangements. I mean, I get like an RTF and Lifetime and Brand X kind of feel throughout a good chunk of this album. And to me, it scratches the itch. The players are great. I think it's a pretty tight album as far as, like, again, the compositions go. Pretty memorable songs most of the way through. I will say, Pulsarweed, or however you say it, the final 10-minute plus track, I'm a big fan of like mid-period Soft Machine, like from the third album to like the sixth album. So that kind of reminds me of that a little bit. I don't really mind it too much. It is too long. I think that would have been good, like 5 minutes and change, just do a little weirdness and get the hell out, right? But overall, I love the drumming on here. The guitar player rips, the keyboard player is really good. They're all really good musicians. I want to hear more of this. I also agree, a couple you mentioned, it's like they kind of don't know, do we want to be like a retro fusion act or a prog act? And I kind of get that a little bit too, but I think these guys probably going to release some really good material going forward. I don't think we've heard the best from them yet, because they're really good players. I really enjoy this a lot. So I was surprised that I put this at my number one, but I'm okay with my choice. So there you go.
Do they have other albums out?
I got one other from Ken. I'm not sure.
I think there's only the other one full length. I think
Is it retro like this one in production and instrumentation as well?
Yeah, they're all retro in sound.
Okay.
There's 3 before, but I think, early ones might be just EPs. Oh, my number one is the Panzer. This is the band out of this. I feel like the others are less jump out to me. This jumps out. Those are good. They're good, but this really jumps out at you in a lot of different ways. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's probably a mood piece. It's not something you can just put on any old time, but it's inspired. Basically, it's completely inspired. Even the covers, they're not covers like everybody else's covers. I mean, this is the second album that they put out, and the first album was all originals. They weren't so much into the distorted guitars on that one. So the label head stepped in, and he's the guy that was pushing the covers because he thought it would be a way to promote.
I'm blown away that they're on Act. I mean, I think anybody that follows Act would have their synapses fried by this band.
And it looks like it might be a staid album. It says Young German Jazz. It's like, this could be boring. It's not boring, that's for sure. No matter what you want to say about it, it's not boring. The covers are all like reharms and stuff, and well chosen. It's just like him. He's a metal kid and a jazz kid. So for him to pick all these metal covers, just kind of in keeping with the way he thinks. He made me even like Winds of Change. That's a Scorpions tune that I've always hated, but I mean, he made it really good. A great solo by Wen Lee, completely tearing it up. And Pink Panther and Smoke on the Water too are really good takes.
Yeah,
even Paranoid. If you told me they're going to turn Paranoid into a softie, I'm probably against that idea, but it worked out.
Yeah,
That's terrific.
The things I can do without on here, Zickenterror is a instrumental from the first album that decided to put avant vocals on top of. That's got to go. I mean, that's keeping this album down. And the extreme vocals on the end of Fruity Fruity Furball, I don't need that either. But other than that, this album is constantly entertaining to me. Uh, they I wish they would play here. They played Buffalo and they played Oakland in like 2012, 2013, and that's it. They've not been on this soil again. But yeah, for me, like you said, they got room to grow, and they already stand out for me in this crowd. So that was my number one.
I found for me these four picks, unlike many of our previous months, I don't know if I would rate any of these a 4.5 or 5-star classic. I think all of these albums are pretty good to really strong, but I don't know if any of the four are classic albums to me anyway.
How do you rate the Passport album in terms of the Passport catalog, Pete? Because I don't know any of the other stuff.
It's top three.
Top three.
Yeah.
I picked that one because it's the highest ranked on Rich Music, but it's not by a large margin. They're all kind of in that same group.
There's like three in the row. This is one of them where you can't go wrong with any of the three of them. And I've over the years have had one or the other is my favorite Passport. It's definitely, you know what it is for, and I said it before when I was talking about it. It's like for me, the album falls off a little bit at the end, but I think the first 4 tracks are excellent, really, really strong. And the problem with Passport is later on in the 70s, they became very like smooth jazzy, so to speak. And the stuff is just way too melodic. It's not very daring. And it's just, it's less interesting to me because all the albums starting like the late 70s into the early 80s, they all kind of sound the same. They're all very, very sax driven, and there's not a lot of cool keyboards, and you don't have guitar anyway. But the early stuff like this is really cool because again, it's kind of like Weather Report-ish. It's this really good arrangements, and they can kind of go off the deep end from time to time, but you can hear a little bit of the smoothness in a couple songs on here. But that was their thing. That's what they did. But yeah, I would say, Mike, any of the first 6 are well worth getting.
Like Eric was saying, he got that first 5 box. It's like $22.
Yeah, it was cheap.
Yeah, they're all good. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those classic album series or whatever.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, the thing about that album that really blew me away is normally if I have a problem with retro stuff, it's in the drummer. And the drum sound, you get into the Dennis Chambers years and Vinny and stuff, and it blows all that stuff away, But this guy, even though he had the old sound and the old attitude, even it's the ferocity of the drumming. I was captivated by the guy. I thought he was tremendous on this album.
Yeah, he's quite the player.
He played with Saga for a time too, right? Kurt Kress.
Did he?
I think he was on a Saga album. Have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure I remember his name on after their big years. I think maybe a 90s album or something. But I meant to look at that before the show, but I think he did spend a little time with them.
All right, well, let's dig into the George's pick. Yet another German export here, relocated to California. MSM Schmidt, Michael Schmidt. This is 2017 album, his 6th. He's like I said, now he's a West Coast keyboard player. He used to be a drummer, and he found that he couldn't really affect the way the music sounded that much from that position. So he just decided, hey, I'm going to start playing keyboard so I can compose. And he got to be pretty good. To me, the albums get better as they go along. What'd you end up thinking, Eric?
I think kind of what you said. I was introduced to him through this, the Arc Trio, and stellar lineup. Holdsworth, Weckl, Scott Kinsey, Virgil Donati. I will say I need more Oz Noy, so I'm coming to you for that because Medusa killed me, I think, is it?
Great tune.
Mike Miller's great too, and obviously you get Holdsworth, which I know we've all discussed how much we like Holdsworth's guest appearances. He's fantastic here as well. But I find myself, as much as I love the guitar, I love the varied instrumentation. I love hearing the horns. I think it's Vista, where there's like Holdsworth solos, then the horns come in, and then Holdsworth comes back. Just terrific. But I think what you said is this stuff is seems like it's so well put together. Everything fits, and there's space. And maybe Mike, this is what you're talking about. No, there's no crowding. Not everything isn't up front. There's space for all the instruments. I think it's a great sounding record. I love get to hear Jerry Goodman on a track, Red and Gold, I think. But really good. If I had any criticism, maybe a little more punch in a few things. It kind of gets, I don't want to say smooth, that's the wrong word, but maybe a track or two that had a little more punch to it. But I've got no issue except that I want to find this cheaper than 20 something bucks on Discogs.
Pete, what'd you end up thinking?
I mean, it's got an all-star lineup, which I think, was pretty eye-popping when I first started diving into this. I think there's some great solos throughout the album. I mean, the Holdsworth solos are amazing. The drumming is really good. Osnoy, as always, I don't really have a lot with him, but every time I've ever heard him, I've been pretty impressed. Mike Miller's great on here as well. Weckel's awesome. Donati's great. In fact, Donati's really good on the couple tunes he plays on here. My issue with this album is that I find that I'm wanting more from the arrangements. I find like almost every song I'm waiting for the solos, and the songs themselves don't really grab me much. So like after I got done with this a few times, I was kind of like, all right, some of the tunes are a little laid back. Some are a little bit more fiery. I like the fiery stuff. There's some cool funk in a couple spots here, but I just found on a whole that the album is not really essential listening for me. There's really some really nice playing on here to check out that you could be impressed with. But I don't really find any of the songs really grab me, but I do enjoy the solos, if that makes any sense. So to me, a nice listen, good soloing from a lot of the cats that are on board, but not a very memorable album in my opinion, but fun to listen to nonetheless.
I thought it might hit with you because the general tenor of it is kind of in that electric band, metro kind of, a little bit softer as far as grit, and a great playing, obviously.
Yeah, I see one of the things I love about the electric band, George, and this obviously, is those songs are so memorable.
Yeah.
Even though the solos are amazing, even on the songs where you don't get great, crazy soloing, you remember them. You remember those melodies. I don't really get that with this album. I find like I was just waiting every song, every track for, okay, who's going to solo next? So like, oh, that was really good. And then when that person stops, you're kind of like Eric mentioned, you get these kind of solos with little breathing room in between. And like every song, it's like, okay, let's wait a little bit. Oh, there's Alan. Okay. All right. Ooh, nice drum fill. Okay. And not a lot connects it for me. And I don't feel like I'm wanting to go back and back and back to hear the compositions, but I'm liking the solos. So to me, it's an incomplete kind of collection of tracks for me. And before we move on, just before we forget, Eric was 100% correct. So the drummer for Passport played on 2 late 80s Saga albums, Wildest Dreams and Beginner's Guide to Throwing Shapes. He played on the Milli Vanilli album. He played on the big Rick Springfield album. He played on a Meatloaf album. He played on a Freddie Mercury album. The guy played on a million things. Okay. He played for the New Triumvirate. He played on a Lucifer's Friend album and a ton of Passport albums. So just wanted to throw that out there. Guy got around.
Speaking of the Holdsworth solos, for people's information, this is the last recorded work from Alan before he passed.
Oh, yeah.
Bassist Jimmy Haslip is the musical director kind of for Schmidt. He books all the guys. He gets the music, he hears it, he says, okay, this guy would be good for this track, yada yada. So Schmidt loves Holdsworth, so he did it as a surprise to him. He got him to play it on the record, and he didn't tell him until he played him the tracks. That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
So tell Pete why he's wrong, Mike. I know you love this album.
I love this album. But I understand what Pete says about, it almost doesn't matter to me that there are some tunes that I can actually hum that I remember. Okay. But I get what you're saying, Pete. But the thing about this record is beyond just, I mean, the personnel and the performances are astronomical. I think what makes the difference for me is Rich Breen doing the engineering on this makes everything sound delicious, and I just can't get enough of it. I mean, you know, I'm a rabbit ears guy. I grew up watching Static Fuzz Reception, trying to watch Monty Python. Yeah, I didn't care what the picture looked like, you know, and that kind of rubbed off in my listening. But man, sometimes albums sound so good. And this is one of them. I really enjoy the way this album sounds, and that might be why it carries me through a little bit of what you're talking about, Pete. But
I will give you, it is a really good sounding album. I absolutely agree with it. Very professional production.
And I have a couple of his other ones, and I've heard a couple of the other ones. And I think aside from the Art Trio record, this is his best one, as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, Holdsworth has a lot to do with that. I think this is my favorite appearance of Holdsworth, shy of Planet X Quantum back in 2008, because he just destroyed the two songs he played on that album were just outrageous. And then it's so nice to hear him in a different context. And I know that this was produced after he passed away, because I don't think he would have put effects on his guitar. I know he's complained about that before, but somebody put just a little bit of delay on there, and, you know, modulation, maybe you can hear it. It sounds great. And he always sounds great, but it's like guys like him, Stern, maybe Morse, they're so in their own idiom that when they step out and play on somebody else's record, it's always a breath of fresh air as far as I'm concerned. And I just have to mention Mike Miller, who is one of my hands down favorites as a composing musician and as a player. But like, you know, one of the things on this record, there's two versions of the song Life. There's a long version and short version. And, you know, initially I just thought one was like an edit, but it's not. The short version actually has they took Jimmy Haslip's bass solos out of it, and they gave Mike Miller an extended thing at the end and that's, if you listen to the solo work that Mike Miller does on that track, that's what I love about Mike Miller as an improviser. You can hear him changing on a dime in the middle of a solo with an idea here and there. Like, he's always just going for it, and he's never premeditated at all. And that's one of the things I love about Mike Miller. And thank God he's on a lot of these tracks. I really enjoy that. But yeah, Osnoy, fantastic. All the personnel on here, you know, it's kind of like production wise, it's so shiny, like it almost gives you a little bit of shock, you know, like, oh my God, it's almost too shiny, you know, like I always step back when I hear that, like, just like soprano sax, like Kenny G's given soprano sax a really bad vibe sometimes, you know. Wayne Shorter gets away with anything on soprano sax, but, you know, every time you hear it, shininess, it's like, all right, is there going to be substance here? And I think, you know, there's plenty of substance here. I dig this record. I really do. And if it weren't for Art Trio, the one from last year, which I almost got the liner notes for that record. I'm so pissed off. I love that record. That's my favorite record of last year. So, but anyway, you know, aside from that record, I think this is MSM Schmidt's best.
I would agree. I love the opener, Trance. Weckel really pushes that tune. Great solo from Holdsworth, and real aggressive synth soloing from Kinsey. It's kind of unusual for him. He's not doing this little Zabinal thing. He's really trying to take the roof off. That's good. Vista's probably my favorite, again, with Holdsworth, and Donati is just thundering on that tune. He's got the perfect feel for that. A great pick by Haslip. I was talking to you about it in chat, Red and Gold. I mean, now I look at that song a different way now that they redid it on Archaeology. I don't like this version as much, but it's still great. And Medusa, that was a good one to mention. That's got a kind of a dark feel, funky, just a real good tune. I don't dislike any songs on this record, but I think some do stand out more than others. And like you said, the production is just luscious. I mean, you just fall right into it every time I hear it. I just love that production feel.
You know, what struck me is we were talking a little bit about the Arc Trio record having Gergo on it, Gergo Borlai.
Yeah.
And he's such a great drummer. But I heard stuff from Virgil Donati on this record that was kind of Gergo-ish that I did not expect. I mean, it was. I wonder if you picked up on that, George. I was, Virgil to me is like Planet X, and
Yeah.
he showed a lot more finesse on the tracks that he's on this record than he did on, Planet X, obviously. But
Another one like that is Cab Theatre de Marionettes. He's on that, and he was replacing Chambers in that band, and I was like, oh no, he's not the right guy. But he really stood up on that record. That's one you got to check out if you haven't heard it.
okay, they didn't call that Dab.
No. All right. Well, the George's pick next month. Speaking of Dennis Chambers, this album called Petite Blonde. This is a live recording, 1992. Quite a lineup, as you can see. Victor Bailey, Mitch Foreman, Bill Evans, Chuck Loeb. I'll leave the theme up to conjecture, but I will say our guest next month is YouTube music aficionado Andy Edwards, friend of the channel for years now. It hasn't been on in a while, so we told him to come on back for a show. And we will see what the theme is next month.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to hearing that album. Petite Blonde, yeah, great lineup.
I know you like your live albums.
That's right. I like them so much that this just came in today.
Nice.
Nice. And Pete, what were you listening to today? You posted that looked interesting as well.
Oh, that was the VSOP album with
Okay.
Hancock and Company. That's an absolute classic stuff. So yeah, so there you have another episode of 4Fusion Friday. So for all of you, and Gary, get everybody in line, right? Mr. Principal, make sure everybody goes out and checks out these 4 or 5 albums and rank them as you hear them, as you like them, down in the comments below. And George will also post his new picks, right, for you to go check out. And we'll see you in 1 month from today for the next episode of 4Fusion Friday. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. All the damn time. For Mike Jacobs, Eric Porter, and George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks once again for George for emceeing this whole show. As always, he does a great job, and we'll see you next time on 4Fusion Friday. Stay tuned for the UK Connection tomorrow and ranking the albums coming up on Sunday. I'll be ranking the catalog of the Derek Trucks Band. So lots happening here on the channel. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. For the gang, I am Pete. Take care. Bye-bye.